Okay, we will open up our media availabilities for today's Saturday, day 2 of Ford Championship weekend. We have a very special one we do annually with our 3 manufacturer partners. Here with us today is Jim Campbell, the Chevrolet U.S. Vice President of Performance Vehicles and Motorsports, Mark Rushbrook, the Global Director of Ford Performance, and Ed Laukes, the Group Vice President Marketing for Toyota Motor North America. And gentlemen, before we talk about the action on the track, for the 3rd consecutive year, these 3 competitors collaborated to drive engagement throughout the playoffs by giving fans a chance to win 3 new custom-designed trucks. Congratulations on another great year. I'll take the same question for all 3 of you. Can you each discuss the 2018 season, what you were most proud of, and the excitement around championship weekend? And Jim, maybe we'll start with you, locking up 2 manufacturers' championships in both the Campbell World Truck Series and the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Already clinched that last week, even though we have 1 race to go.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that definitely was a highlight. We've had, obviously the manufacturers' championships, obviously 2 drivers in the truck series. We're going for the championship. Didn't win it last night, but proud that they got to the championship 4, 2 today with Hemrick and Reddick. Obviously, don't have anybody in the championship 4 for the Cup, so that's disappointing. But I would say that as I take a look at a year in which we introduced a new car, Camaro's 01, and we've begun this transition that we all go through at different points where many veteran drivers have started to retire, and we're bringing a young crew of drivers. We had a young group that got a year of experience. You see Chase Elliott really accelerated his season through the back half with 3 wins in the last 14 races. And then Larson was very consistent all year long. Obviously didn't make the Final 4 or all the way through the chase, but proud of those guys. And overall, the trajectory of the season, not exactly the way we want, but definitely heading in a better direction than where we were in the front half of the season. And so when you bring a new car in and you have a big changeover in drivers, those are big moments for manufacturers. So more work to do, but looking forward to the rest of the weekend, the race today. And I know there's a few Chevy drivers that would love to perform great tomorrow in the race, but clearly tomorrow's about the championship 4. So that's it.
Thank you, Jim. Mark, 18 wins in the Monster Energy Series for Ford, 2 playoff drivers, and current leader in the manufacturer championship standings for in the Cup Series. I believe it's if the top finishing Ford finishes 15th or better, you guys lock it up. So clearly an outstanding chance to win that. So maybe talk about your 2018 season.
Yeah, it's been a great season for us. Really happy to see the performance on track. I think there was a lot of talk this time last year or before the 2018 season started that we were entering the season with the oldest body, with Toyota having a new body last year and Chevy having a new body this year. So our focus has been to give a lot more technical depth and support to our teams, and with such strong competition against Toyota and Chevy, that's been a long process for us. It's really been 3 years or more in the making to improve our game in every area that's important for the performance on track, with the engine program, the aerodynamics, the body program, simulation, tire modeling, everything, driveline, you got to have strength in every area to perform on track. So it's been a long process for sure, and even having the oldest body by design, we still were focused on using our advanced aerodynamics tools to improve the performance, and I think that is starting, that has paid off for this year. With the 18 wins across different teams, different drivers, and showing up here with 2 Ford drivers in the championship 4, it certainly means a lot, and definitely the position that we have in the manufacturers championship, although it's not locked up, it's looking pretty good right now, knock on wood. And it means a lot to us and to our company and to our executives and to our employees. So hopefully we can get the manufacturers championship, and look forward to a good battle on track tomorrow for the drivers championship. It's been a good competitive season. Definitely enjoy competing against the other manufacturers on track and what we're able to do with our teams.
Great, thank you, Mark. And Ed, obviously 2 Toyota drivers in the championship for tomorrow, and this cool stat of you're the only manufacturer with at least 1 member in all 3 championship 4s for all 3 national series, coming off the truck win last night. Congratulations on that. Maybe you talk about that and your 2018 season overall.
So I think last year we did this on Sunday, and if you remember the comments that I made at the very beginning, I'm not going to repeat those comments, but they're on YouTube if you want to rewatch them from last year. So last year I got a laugh. I guess I'm not going to get one this year, so.
I do remember them.
Yes, I know you remember. You reminded me, so. So good morning, everyone. Obviously, a huge year for Toyota between Kyle's 8 wins, Martin running through to championship coming up on Sunday, Christopher Bell breaking the record of most wins over Kyle with 7 wins, huge for us, and then obviously last night the championship. So that really started a fantastic weekend for us. I think as the year went on, after, as Jim mentioned, one of the trials and tribulations you go through with a new car, we went through last year at the beginning of the season and struggled, and then ended up in pretty decent place, obviously, at the end of the year with Martin winning. So it's nice to have him back as defending champion. The win last night was fantastic. You have a single truck team, a guy that really has been really trying really hard for many, many years to get to that level, and to watch him win and watch Hattori's son get up there. It really was a very, very special evening for us, huge. And it's also very bittersweet, and it will be bittersweet for us tomorrow to be able to say goodbye to Barney Visser. Barney was another guy that started as a single car team. He defied the traditional model, as you all know, and was in Denver and started his team in Denver, and operated out of it, and ended up winning a championship last year with Martin. So it's we have one great celebration with a single truck team that worked really hard to get there, and then tomorrow we'll say goodbye to Barney, but hopefully we'll be saying goodbye to Barney with a championship. So that it's been a great year for us, as I mentioned. And then I think the other big thing that we'll go through next year is with the Supra. So we will introduce our new Supra at the Detroit Auto Show, and it will then debut at Daytona. So we're excited about having the Supra back in the mix.
Great. Thank you, Ed. Okay, we'll open up to media questions. If you have one, please raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you and state your name and affiliation. We'll start over here with Kelly, then move to Jerry.
Kelly Crandall, Racer.com. Mark, you hit on it in your opening there about this time last year, there was the consensus, I think the word was drubbing, that Ford was going to get with the body. So how do you explain what has been the difference this year? I know some drivers have said, well, the inspection process was tightened up and that's kind of evened the playing field. But how do you explain how you go from some people having no confidence in all coming into this year to the domination that we've seen from many of the Ford teams?
Yeah, you're right. Drubbing was the right word that I think was used. And it is a focus that we had. So I'm certain that the inspection process is, that change is part of it, because anytime you go through a big change like that, it does affect how the teams prepare the cars and bring the cars to the track. But I think the biggest part is the advanced tools that we've developed over the last couple of years have really matured to the point that they were able to help us. So especially in the area of CFD, where we use that advanced computational fluid dynamics tool, the same tool that we use on our road cars and road trucks to make them better. We've turned that and applied it into racing starting 2 years ago. And it took a little bit of time to adjust those tools, test those tools in this environment to make them even better. And now that is paying off on the performance on the track with the fusion, with what we've seen, hopefully contributing to the Mustang to come strong out of the box at Daytona next year. I know it's a new car and it's going to take some time to fully mature it. And there's some risk with that, but we did apply the tools to the fusion this year, and I think that's part of what is paying off with the performance.
Jerry?
Jerry Jordan, Kicking the Tires.net, Performance Racing Network. For Ed, I'm going to follow up. You mentioned, obviously, the trucks winning last night. I want to follow up a little bit on that. The difference in the engines, it's been a controversy or comments for the past couple, 3 weeks now, ongoing before that. Can you elaborate on what that is and what your guys' philosophy is?
So, as an OEM, I think one of the cornerstones of being involved in NASCAR is having your engine in the vehicle. But let's face it, we all know in this room, and we're all around it every day, the truck series just financially was in trouble relative to the cost of operating a truck team. And I think NASCAR took a Band-Aid approach and tried to figure out a way, as we evolve maybe in the other series with regard to engines and everything, to get a stopgap measure. And I think Mark had one team that was running an OE engine, and Hattori was running our engine. And the changes that had to happen throughout the year, we had to make a decision and to make sure that we had a level playing field when we got to the end of the season. And so we decided to step up and help them with an engine, so that across the field that they'd be the same engine. So I think it's a learning process that everybody's going through. I think it's a learning process for NASCAR. It's a learning process for us. But something's got to evolve. You got to be the team really has to get to the point where it's sustainable, and the engines obviously are a big part of it.
You guys have incurred on similar issues with that?
Yeah, so we've always had the position that what makes it a Ford on track, the most important parts are the body and the engine. And originally, we were not in support of the alternate engine being made available in truck. But after going through the different financial business cases with our teams and with NASCAR, we understood that it makes sense. That's not the story necessarily that we want whenever we hear truck races, OEM engine we do want to hear about Toyota versus Ford versus Chevy. But when the alternate engine comes into the discussion as much as it has, that isn't necessarily what we want. But we understand the benefit to the sport of having a lower cost option. I think longer term, it may make sense to either go back to OEM engines or across the board. But at this point, we're learning, NASCAR's learning, and we'll make some together is the right decision for the sport, I think.
Go to Nick up here in the front.
Nicholas DeGroot, Motorsport.com. I have two for Mark. First of all, yesterday, Walt and Tony were talking about when they brought SHR into the fold and how that didn't just bolster SHR, but all the Ford organizations, including Penske. Would you agree with that? And secondly, are you worried about a learning curve with the Mustang next year, similar to the Camaro this year?
Yeah, so on the first question, I will say that I agree with that. So the way that we approach a lot of what we do inside of Ford, we're still a family-owned company, and to work there at Ford Motor Company, it's like working for the Ford family. That means a lot for us as employees of the company, and that's the same way that we approach our partnerships with our teams on the track. And we work together directly with Ford and each team, but then there are also certain areas where we will have our teams work together and share and collaborate. They need to race against each other. Ultimately, they can't share everything, but there are some efficiencies from that. So for sure, there's strength, more strength across all the Ford teams because of having Stuart Haas there with Penske, with Wood Brothers, and Roush Fenway and Front Row. We all work together to deliver that. As far as your second question, we've definitely seen what's gone on with the Chevrolet this year, and as Jim said, right, bringing anything new to the track is always a difficult challenge, whether it's a new body or a new block for the engine or cylinder head or even a chassis component. So there's no guarantees. We realize that it's going to be a learning curve, and again, using our advanced CFD tools, hopefully we've gone through and got the best body that we can through the homologation process, the approval process. And since gaining that approval, we've been focused, and it's been the difficult challenge, right, to keep our tools and our people focused on delivering wins in a championship this year with a Fusion to send it out the right way. But also hopefully enough focus being paid to the new Mustang so that we can hit the track fast when we get on Daytona in February. Yeah.
Go back here to Jacob, then Chris, then Claire.
Jacob Seelman, Speed Sport. I've got two questions. The first is for Mark. When you, over here on your left, no manufacturer's title since '02, but you're in great position to claim that tonight, and the last driver's title was '04. Is that kind of a drought as a manufacturer for you guys? Is that frustrating, or when you look at the gains you've made and the position you put yourself in now, is it one of those where if you can cap it off tonight, it makes it more worth it for what you've had to fight through to get back to this point?
I think for sure it's a drought. Everybody will see that from the time. Mr. Ford sitting to your left will tell you that as well as everybody at Ford Motor Company. It's a huge pride point for us as an automotive company, as with Chevy and Toyota, but especially with our roots and Mr. Ford's family's roots in terms of what racing did to create the company and part of who we are today. So for sure it's a drought, and it's been a very motivational point that we definitely want to get that manufacturers championship since '02. That's a long time, and a drivers championship since '04. So that's what motivates us every day in our teams and why we're here today.
Jim, kind of following on from that, obviously you alluded at the start to that this hasn't necessarily been the season that you wanted, but Is it a motivating factor for you guys to come back that much stronger next year? And then how do you gauge kind of the growth that you guys have seen from the start of the year to now with the Camaro?
Yeah, I mean, we're in, Chevrolet's in 5 different series. We've got Holden in a series, Cadillac's in a series. Previously, when we owned Opel, Opel was in a series. And so we gauge our performance, those series on, I call it a trajectory. Are you on the right trajectory? It's tough to win every race, right? It's difficult. But are you on the right trajectory? And so I would say that when you bring a new car into the sport, at one point that could be a point of advantage, right? But you go through the homologation process and they put you in a box of downforce, drag, and side force so that they're reasonably aero matched. But with 750, mid 700 horsepower on mile and a half tracks, 2-mile tracks, every pound of downforce translates to speed, even though you're increasing drag. And so when you have a brand new car, you don't have that, months and months or years and years of fine tuning within the rule set to optimize downforce. And so that's what our teams have been doing. And not only in the tunnel, we also have tools like CFD and simulation. And so we basically have been doing that with our teams and in our simulation environment. And so over the course of the season within the rule set, we've been able to fine tune it and get a better trajectory. Chase is probably our best example. Larson's been pretty consistent through the year. But all the teams we've seen an improvement. So what I would say is a moment where you bring a new car in and then combine with a lot of veteran drivers, guys like Gordon, Tony Stewart at one point was with our team, Dale Jr. Moving on, we're replacing with these really young, exciting drivers. And so those are two things that happen at the same time, and it becomes, it's a big lift. But I'm really excited about what that means for us for next year. Consistency in the body, we're further down the development curve. And then, by the way, there's a new aero package coming next year. And at the mile and a half, 2-mile tracks, we're bringing the horsepower down into the 550 range. So now every pound of downforce comes with drag, but you only have about mid 500 horsepower. So you don't have as much horsepower to overcome the drag. So what that means for us next year is we got to make sure when we add downforce, it's really efficient. It comes with the least amount of drag because you only have about mid 500 horsepower to overcome the drag because they usually travel together. Downforce and drag travel together, and side force. So bottom line is I'm excited about where we're going, and also our young drivers. Some of them are rookies. Some are 20 years old. These guys have another year under their belt, and so they're going to be more experienced going into next year. And I also am very proud of the fact that William Byron and Bubba Wallace finished 1-2 in the rookie standings. So there you go, guys. No, I'm proud of those guys. They did a great job. But that's what I have to say.
And again, you're welcome for William Byron.
That's right. You do remember that. Thank you.
Remember
And I want to thank you for that.
And Bubba.
I do.
And Bubba Wallace. Thank you, guys.
And Bubba Wallace.
Thank
yes,
you.
Exactly.
Finally broke the ice with these guys.
Happy to be the farm team for Chevrolet over at Toyota.
Go to Chris.
Jimmy Johnson? Oh, that's right.
Jimmy Johnson, yes. In the dirt.
ChrisMikeCatchmans.com. For Ed, what Shiggy and Brett Moffitt were able to do this year is unparalleled from them being a standalone team. Shiggy, an owner from Japan, fighting to get sponsors, getting to the racetrack, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Will Toyota do anything to make sure that that team remains intact for 2019, meaning Brett and Shiggy, and contend for another championship?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I can't tell you how proud we are of that team. And I think, if you go back into the history of NASCAR and watch guys that have grown through the sport and come through the sport and had their ups and downs and fought, he's really a prime example of that. And Moffitt obviously did a great job of driving throughout the season. And even with the engine changes back and forth, we're really so proud of them. So the question that you're asking is where they stand financially for next year and what if we're going to step in order to help them. There's a lot of discussion around that, and the odds are probably that you'll see him back here at the racetrack next year, but obviously there's no guarantee. We can't fund every single team, and he's got to build his own sponsorship model, but we'd love to see him back. I think NASCAR would love to see him back. Those guys that are growing through the sport are few and far between, and we have to build, as far as NASCAR, not only in the truck series, Xfinity, et cetera, Joe Gibbs, Roger Penske, Rick Hendrick, these guys are not going to live forever, so we got to be able to develop and bring these guys through and bring new owners into the team, and so we're going to try to do everything we can to try to support them.
Go Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. I know this is a really basic question, but I really am looking for the answer. What does winning a championship mean to a manufacturer, and what does not competing in a championship mean for the manufacturers, you know, for selling cars, for the attention you get, for what it means for all of you?
Go ahead, Jim.
Thanks, guys. You guys are your beauties up here. No, I'd say, listen, over the past 15 years, Chevy had a chance to win 13 manufacturer championships, so we have really had a lot of pride around that, but it's a team effort. It takes all the teams to really be putting points on the board every week. Obviously, Xfinity and Truck will have that opportunity this year, and then our other series that we compete in. That is one of our goals every year. It's basically manufacturer and driver championships, amongst some other things. Some of the big marquee races is also important. And what we find is that racing, obviously, you get the tech transfer benefits. You can develop engineers. But when you win championships, whether it's manufacturer or driver, we find that you see a lift in brand opinion. And when you see a lift in brand opinion, it does link to people putting on their shopping list more quickly. That's what our data shows. And also, but the image ratings, too. We look at about 22 image ratings for Chevrolet every month. And we look at amongst the NASCAR fans and other fan bases in motorsports and how that compares to general market. And we see a significant lift on many of the image ratings. So it's important. It does link. And then what I love about motorsports, we're involved in all these series. When you win, it's a moment of celebration, but you can't rest a minute. You got to figure out how to keep momentum going. When you don't win, it is entirely about how you respond with your partners. And so that's obviously in the truck series. We had two guys in the championship, and the manufacturers, Xfinity, 2 drivers in the championship, manufacturers championship. And obviously in the Cup, it wasn't our best year, but I'm looking at trajectory of the program. Hello. So that's how we respond.
Hello. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, just a lot of what Jim talked about is very similar to Ford, and obviously in NASCAR at the Cup level, we've had the experience in the last 14 years of not knowing what it's like to have a Cup Drivers Championship, and 16 years to not have a Cup Manufacturers Championship. But it is very motivational, right? I've been in motorsports now. This is my 5th year with the motorsports team. So I've gone through coming here before with drivers in contention or not, right? As we had 2 years ago or 3 years ago. But it is how you respond. So it's just when we didn't win it, we just went back and dug deeper and sharpened our tools and approach with our teams to come back, so that this year, hopefully we're in a position, and with 2 drivers, certainly not guaranteed, but going to look forward to the race tomorrow. But in other series as well, so we were able to, last month, secure the Manufacturers Championship in the IMSA GTLM, which means a lot to us as a company, as Jim says, to connect with our customers, our fans, with our employees. It means a lot to them to come in on Monday morning and to see that we've won a race or won a championship. And on a global basis as well. So the WRC World Rally Championship is going on in Australia, and we've got a driver, Seb Ogier, in contention for a championship against Toyota. Actually, I think Tanik is leading the event with 1 day to go, but Seb Ogier is in position to hopefully secure the championship. So it means a lot on a global basis as well to compete in these different series and show what we can do with our technical tools and point of employee pride.
Yeah, Claire, just a real quick follow-up to what Jim and Mark said. We're 100% aligned. You know, we measure everything, but it really, since we started Cup racing as a car company, people that love cars, 2007 we went Cup racing, winning races, winning championships, and especially winning big races, like we've only won the Daytona 500 once, a couple times at Indy. Those are really rallying cries for the company, so it really is all the other things these guys talked about, but I really think the emotional lift you get as an organization around cars when you win is you get a real rallying cry internally within the company. So,
Okay, we have time for a couple more. We'll go to Greg, Jerry.
Hi, Greg Engel, Auto Week. For all you guys, as the automotive industry is changing, and you know we talk about SUV selling and stuff, one of the things that I'm curious about is the proliferation of hybrids in the market. They're coming, and and there will be a time when most of the vehicles we drive are hybrids. Do you ever envision a time in NASCAR when we're going to use, like, a la Formula One, where we're going to have hybrid-style race engines?
Want to take it first? Yeah.
I'll say yes, but the question is when, right? Because all of us, our road car cycle plans are all changing, both in the body shapes, the styles, and definitely the powertrains. And the relevance always has to be there, whatever series that we're competing in. So those are always active discussions when we have OEM council meetings as partners. So we compete on the track, but we all have to work together as partners off the track with NASCAR and our track partners. And that is something that we always talk about, is when is the right time to change the car and to change the powertrain. And there's definitely some potential for hybrid in the sport, not necessarily at a track like Daytona 500 where you're wide open throttle for the entire time. The hybrid just doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense for that. But certainly for short tracks and road courses, there may be some potential there in the future. Question is when.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. You know, I think most people will agree that the Prius really set the tone for hybrid technology, and the evolution has been growing in very, very different forms relative to the different vehicles are out there. But this really is a story, as Mark mentioned, about the OEM Council and the work, the collaboration that we do with NASCAR in order to improve the sport. So the short answer is yes. I would never rule it out. The long answer is we don't know when right now.
Jerry?
Yeah, I would say we obviously have hybrids around our portfolio around the world, not only with Chevrolet, but our sister divisions, all the way through extended range electrics, where we have an electric battery for a certain amount of range, and then we have a onboard generator for additional range extender, and then we have all the way to battery electrics like the Bolt, which gives you 238 miles of nominal range. So when you think about all that going on in the auto industry here in the U.S., North America, and around the world, that is a discussion point around, you know, when do we bring these kind of advanced propulsion technologies into the mix? And that's really the one thing that I applaud NASCAR for doing, is they use a technique that we use in our dealer world, where we have these dealer councils, and actually we all have them. And they're really valuable because in our automobile business, you're able to talk to dealers to get feedback on product, marketing programs, go-to-market initiatives, and we make better decisions as a result. And about, I don't know, was it 4 years ago or so, NASCAR put in an OEM council for the first time, a formal council. They would always talk to us informally, but now we have a formal way to communicate. So those are the places where we have a chance with NASCAR to collaborate on that. Other than that, we want to beat each other on the track and the showroom. But that is the moment NASCAR brings us together to talk about what could be. Because we do have to think forward. You have to advance plan. We're a long lead business, an automobile business. When it comes to racing, it's long lead as well. You got to make decisions well in advance when you're going to implement it. So it's possible when it happens. We'll have to determine that, and we'll do that through OEM Council.
Jerry Jordan, Kicking the Tires on that and PRN. For each of y'all, and since you brought up this in the OEM Council, y'all also talk about, or hear about other OEMs wanting to come into the sport and things of that nature. I don't expect you to tell me who or what, but are y'all still open to that? And are there still active discussions with other OEMs wanting to be in NASCAR?
Yeah, I would say in the 5 series we compete in, NASCAR is one of them. There's 4 others that we compete in. More OEM participation is better. First of all, it's who we compete against in the showroom, and so it's meaningful when you win on the track, either a race or a championship or a marquee race. So yes, we want that. The other benefit is it takes the kind of the fixed costs and you divide them up amongst more manufacturers. Because as technology advances, the cost of development and then implementation can go up. It just depends on the rule set for a series. So having more OEMs in accomplishes 2 goals: compete with them on the track and in the showroom, and also spread the fixed costs of what it costs to operate these kind of programs. So we're open to it. The details of what's going to happen here, I don't know, but in every series we're open to it.
Yeah, I can just mirror that. Excuse me, mirror that exactly the same. That the more OEMs, the better for us, because that's what we want to compete against the best in the world and demonstrate our performance on the track.
Yeah, same.
We'll wrap it up with Kelly over here.
KellyCrandallRacer.com. For Ed, just looking ahead to next year, bringing LFR into the group, and thoughts on Matt DiBenedetto returning to the Toyota camp.
So obviously pretty excited about having them, especially with, as I mentioned earlier with Barney, we're losing Barney Visser and going away. So, Matt's a proven driver, and having him under the Toyota umbrella again is good for us. We're really excited about the team. The folks over there are great people, and we think it's going to be great for the company.
Okay, with that, we'll wrap it up. Jim, Mark, Ed, thank you so much for coming in, and good luck the rest of the weekend.
Yes, sir.
And thanks for all you do for the sport.
Thank you.
Good luck, gents.
SEMA, be all right? Here we go.